Hello, family. Welcome back to JFK Today, your direct link to all things politics, comedy, and culture. I am your host, Janae FutureCon, champ-yapper, and frequent nuisance in the activist and comedy worlds. Let's get dialed in. Just before we jump, JFK Today is a self-funded, self-produced show. We're on Patreon at Janaea FK. I am so grateful for all the support and for you just taking the time to listen. Okay, we are talking some essential updates on Gaza, Amazon strikes, more on Mangione, and some key updates. Let's get into some quick hits. I do want to just open up, but this is kind of funny. Anyone else feeling a lot of anxiety lately? Just anxiety. I'm eating everything all the time. I like the nighttime. I've been doing a lot of up until the deep night, And I realized it's because there are no news updates. There's no news updates. I can't add something to the roster of things. And so that is where I get in my Simpsons and anime fixes, but I have something a little bit humorous to tell you regarding anxiety. So, generally I've got a pretty solid therapist, pretty gangster person, and she's got a really good rule, right? When you're feeling anxious, you've got to talk back to it. You can't just let it have this running dialogue, because your anxiety talks to things that are projecting into the future, things you can't control. So when you talk back to it, it's not the only narrative. But I got to tell you something. I've been talking back to my anxiety as per usual, and it's making some valid points. It's just I'm like, oh, yeah, no, you're making sense. Grab a beer and sit down because you're spitting right now, right? And so the other thing that you do with anxiety is you ask it, right? When you're talking back to it, you say, what's changed? What's changed? And it's supposed to right size, some of your concerns, because when you look and you touch things, you're like, nothing has changed. But in talking to my anxiety, I was like, what's changed? And my anxiety was like, everything, bitch. And I was like, nah, you got... You got some good points. Why don't you just hang out here with me? I think we're going to be buddies for a while. It is a good thing when you can challenge and channel things into where they need to be. In my case, it's eating copious amounts of popcorn in the deep night. But more importantly, here are some funny headlines that I got in today, because I've been cracking up about them all day. Listen, I just got to read it. This was in The Guardian. Virginia man dies after bear shot and tree falls on him. Was he standing under the bear when he shot it? And if so, why? Why did you do that? Second favorite of the day. Now, this is a year old, but I came across it because I have been doing a little deep dives on our boy Gavin Newsom, because I want to pay attention to who in the Democrats, who amongst the Dems are going to be the heavyweights over the craptacular next 4 years under Donald Trump. So I'm looking up Gavin Newsom, and this headline got me. This came out last year. So Gavin Newsom's 10-year plan to end San Francisco's homelessness marks 20-year anniversary. Sorry. If there was a headline that could capture the Democrats as they are now, that's it right there. That is the perfect one. But here is some good news, because we're talking about fighters, and I love come through working class folks. Here we go. Amazon workers across the United States are gearing up to strike. This is days before the holidays. They already know. That Amazon is going to be in a pinch. But here's the thing. This was a completely avoidable moment. Amazon simply refused to even begin negotiations over the contract. So Amazon was given a deadline of December 15th to agree to open talks with workers at the company's JFK 8 warehouse in Staten Island, which, if you are, a labor union nerd, it became the first Amazon warehouse in the United States to win a union election in 2022. They have been, and let me tell you, Amazon has been mad ever since. Truly, they are furious. Teamster General President Sean O'Brien, if you recall seeing him, where was he? On the DNC. Sean O'Brien, he's their guy. He had some really salient points, so I just thought, let me just read them to you right now. The corporate elitists who run Amazon are leaving workers with no choice. Greedy executives are pushing thousands of hardworking Americans to the brink. Amazon rakes in more money than anybody. They subject workers to injury and abuse at every turn, and they illegally claim not to be the rightful employer of nearly half their workforce. This right here is so key. It's part of this whole contractor gig economy reality, which is why labor unions formed in the first place. And this is how corporations are cutting costs so they can ensure that their little stakeholders and the CEOs have their massive golden parachutes living their gilded little lives while everyday people scrape together. And it's not from work. It's like these folks are working so goddamn hard. I'm so tired of the stereotype of this like lazy person. No. The gig economy ensures that we are tirelessly working. And they shirk responsibility to these major corporations by relegating folks and capping hours so that they don't have to pay any kind of benefits. So you get no overtime, no time off, no paid time off, nothing, right? Sean O'Brien goes on to say, this rigged system cannot continue. Amazon must be held accountable to workers and consumers alike. If workers are forced onto the picket line, Amazon will be striking itself. Hell fucking yes. Let's go. Mad love out there to anybody and everybody who is on the brink of striking right now. I am with you 100%. There is some good news. Almost, it's hard to think of anything. That listen to how inarticulate I just got. Oh my goodness, wow. What do I want to say? I want to say this. It is so hard to know that 45,000 people in Palestine and especially in Gaza have been killed, just absolutely murdered, bombed indiscriminately by Israel over the past year. And to say that there is some kind of goodness that can come out of this moment. I don't know that is the correct framing. I think the correct framing, or perhaps the more accurate framing, is that there may be an end to the bombs in sight. Ceasefire talks in Gaza have renewed. So, top U.S., Israeli, Qatari, and Egyptian officials have all touted progress in the negotiations in recent days, and even Hamas is saying that things are looking promising. At present, I took a look at what they are saying the current ceasefire proposal is. It's very consistent with the one, with the proposal initiated under the Biden administration earlier this year, particularly in May. It sort of stayed the same throughout October, et cetera. So it's a 3-phase plan, that would see civilians and women soldiers held hostage in Gaza released in the first 45 days. Remember that Israel has bombed indiscriminately, so they have also killed Israelis that were held there. It would include Israeli forces pulling out of city centers and the coastal road and the strategic strip of land along the border with Egypt. Following that, there would need to be a mechanism designed for displaced Gazans to be able to return to the north of the territory. This is what neutral officials have said. We have to see where Israel stands on that. And to be perfectly frank, we know that they do not honor their commitments. I don't know that there's government that lies more than this one. Anyway, a second stage would see remaining hostages freed and troops withdrawn before the third stage, ending the war. So that's the third stage, right? And here's the thing. Typically, Western media suggests that Hamas is the primary difficult party at the table. We know that the ones pulling the strings in this entire process is not the American government that continues to aid and abet war crimes, despite the fact that it contradicts, it's illegal in America. The ways that America is supporting Israel right now are illegal in America. It's amazing what laws can be violated and justified depending on who's in charge. Anyway, I have a lot of misgivings, obviously, because even as they say that there are peace talks, Israel is currently seeing through plans, and like seeing through as in they are actively doing this. They plan to control security in the Syria buffer zone and security in Gaza. And I cannot think of a more dangerous position outside of carpet bombing Gaza than to put Israelis in charge of Gazan safety. At the time that I started recording, a page refreshed. It was Al Jazeera English, and they just notified, I guess, the world that 8 more Gazans have been killed by Israeli forces. So that's all I want for Christmas is a ceasefire and an arms embargo. And if we get one, we're closer than ever to getting the other. It will be interesting to see because Trump has said over and over again, I want this thing settled before I take office, and we don't know what that necessarily means. There is one other thing that I want to add. It's sorry for my poor segue, but do you remember a couple days ago? I think it was because we're talking about the fight to come, the fight ahead, and I think it was maybe episode 90 or 91 where I mentioned that AOC was making a bid to lead a watchdog committee, the most powerful watchdog committee, in Congress. This is a very, very big deal, right? Because we have an administration coming in that is going to basically do every fucking thing imaginable, like every illegal thing imaginable. It's like we are truly about to enter a for-profit presidency, and that is unprecedented. They want to eliminate the federal government. And in yesterday's episode, I haphazardly made a bid for improving it rather than gutting it. So as of now, so she was in a fight against Jerry Connolly for this position, AOC. And I got to tell you, she lost, in her bid to be the top Democrat in charge of this oversight committee. That is a watchdog role that will oversee investigations into public corruption and wrongdoing over the next 2 years. Now, you might think, that's to be expected. AOC has been doing a phenomenal job, but we all know that 84-year-old Nancy Pelosi is definitely going to generate support for 74-year-old Jerry Connolly. Here's the thing that is concerning, because I've done more looking into on Jerry Connolly. This is public information. It's very much out there. Jerry Connolly, who is 74 years old and is now heading up one of the most important positions on our side and holding the Trump administration accountable, if not immediately, then retroactively, and keeping track of everything that they are doing. He has been diagnosed with esophageal cancer. So a 74-year-old who has esophageal cancer, right? That is a cancer that has an extremely low survival rate, is now leading and heading up one of the most important positions that we have. Let me put this differently. Let's say it another way. Connolly, who is now the top House Democrat on a committee responsible for overseeing ethics and accountability under one of the most rapacious governments we will ever see, will almost certainly die in the process. This feels so reminiscent of Ruth Bader Ginsburg and the fact that we would have a totally different Supreme Court if she had just resigned when it was responsible to do so. And the Democrats, particularly led by Nancy Pelosi and the establishment Dems, they do this bullshit symbolism, and it has major and massive consequences on our actual lives. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is 35 years old. She fought for that position and she damn near won it. It was by a couple of votes. It was a bit more than a couple, but you get my point. I was like, can I squeeze this out? And look, like, I have nothing against Connolly, but even if he does survive, and I hope he does, I truly do, the treatment for it is grueling. The treatment for esophageal cancer is grueling. This is actually unacceptable at a pivotal moment when the Democrats have taken a fucking beating and pulled us into the dirt with them by holding the line for fucking benevolent billionaires instead of the bigoted ones, rather than the constituents that put them in office in the first place. This is how they're still playing the game. I am furious. I am hopeful that he pulls through, and I am hopeful that when he recuses himself, which I hope he does, to focus on his healing, that Ocasio-Cortez is given the position in this to head this oversight committee that she has undeniably earned for her courageous leadership over the last several years. Okay, that's that. I'm just so Pelosi makes me, if I could just go into a simulator where I just detransitioned and aged up a little bit, I would beat her. I would beat that ass. Like she would definitely be able to throw punches back. I want to be clear. Right? Just, I'm so mad. Okay. I got no good jokes for this one. And I just hope, that that's interpreted in the right way. Please don't interpret my jokes erroneously. You must be fluent in LGBT to know what I mean. And if you don't, then you don't understand the joke. It's fine. Anyway, we got to talk about Mangione. We've got to talk about Mangione because there's been some updates on his case and they are gross. I'm going to keep this whole episode nice and concise, right and tight, because I have been way too long-winded lately and I just need to shut my mouth. But I did have a follow-up. So remember yesterday we had this, we talked about this horrific school shooting in Madison, Wisconsin, from like this, this bleed over of far-right incel politics, which is what, it's called femcel. It's rad femcelism. Essentially, a 15-year-old white girl was radicalized by 4chan-esque meme troll core online. And it's horrifying. It is one of hundreds of school shootings that have happened in the United States this year alone. And it made me think, like I was just comparing that to that CEO helpline that they're offering in addition to mental health resources, direct access to the governor. And I just thought, we don't even treat children with the level of care that we do CEOs in this fucking country. And you know what? They're so afraid because of guns. Want to know what we gave children here in America? Right? We were like, no. We're not going to change any of the prevalence of guns and the ease in accessing them. We're not going to take assault weapons and AR-15s off the streets and out of the stores. No. We're going to give kids bulletproof backpacks. So you know what? Why don't we do the same for CEOs rather than all these resources that they simply do not need? Why don't we just offer them bulletproof briefcases? That seems about fair. That seems about right to me. So let's get down to the Mangione mania. What's going on now is that here are the official charges that Luigi Mangione will be facing in New York. He was indicted on murder charges in New York by a grand jury. He's charged with 11 counts, including 1 count of murder in the first degree, 1 count of murder in the second degree as a crime of terrorism, and a separate count of murder in the second degree. Alvin Bragg, the Manhattan district attorney, said this was a killing that is intended to evoke terror. So specifically, murder as an act of terrorism. Now, in New York State, there is this kind of like specificity, a crime of terrorism, and right there, second degree as a crime of terrorism. That could be any number of things that was explicitly chosen. And I want to be really clear about why that is. They want Luigi Mangione to be prosecuted as a terrorist, to be understood and identified as a terrorist, right? Not simply a murder charge. And the reason why is to incite fear amongst us on attacking the system itself, to criticize the system, to take up a political stance in this country is considered an act of terrorism, where actual acts of terrorism are not. For example, Mangione gets hit with a terrorism enhancement. Yet, not a single person who stormed the Capitol on January 6th was charged with terrorism or a terrorism enhancement. This is despite the fact that the White House, the FBI, and the Department of Justice, the DOJ, all denounced the acts and the individuals who took part in the January 6th insurrection as acts of terrorism. But the prosecutors repeatedly pulled back on tougher sentences. And of course, they cited things like unspecified, quote, facts and circumstances. Let's be really fucking clear about this. When there is a political message that challenges the very system itself, the way that the system operates, remember, the January 6th rabid MAGA dogs were not challenging the system, right? They were operators and agents of it, just on a very, extremist faction. But they weren't actually asking for the system. They weren't demanding or challenging the system itself. The system was designed for that subset and faction of people. A good way to understand this framing, right, if the J6 doesn't really help, is to think about terrorism in America and what is understood as terrorism, right? Because we know that terrorism is not privatizing healthcare, which incentivizes human suffering, right? Terrorism is taking a position against that. To further illustrate this point, let me think environmental activism. Okay, this is great. When it comes to what they call eco-terrorism, right? It's like acts against the environment, right? Anything that destroys or damages the environment is not considered eco-terrorism. Fighting against anyone doing that is considered eco-terrorism. So the framing itself in America is so unbelievably deeply flawed. It's just business. If you fight eco-terrorism, you are a terrorist. If you create, eco-terrorism, because that's really what it is, you are terrorizing an ecology, it's just business. It's just business. So, and anytime environmental activists are charged, prosecutors seek to punish using the full weight of the system behind it. The charges are often federal. And terrorist charges. It's just like it's anything that interrupts the corporate breadbasket is called terrorism. It makes me think eco-terrorism first appeared in a 1983 article written by Ron Arnold. This guy was a property rights advocate who proposed opening 70 million acres of federal wilderness to commercial development and motor traffic, right? That meant that it would have allowed for mining in national parks, increased logging and oil production in Alaska, and expanded logging in old growth forests. So he coined the phrase to further his self-proclaimed goal of, quote, destroying environmentalists by taking their money and their members. This is by design. That's the point that I want to make. It is 100% by design. It's so gross and so obvious. A couple of, if that's something you want, the citation from that, I think is from Rebecca K. Smith, eco-terrorism. There's a question mark there, and it goes, a critical analysis of vilification of environmental activists as terrorists. And then another good poll for more information on this is Aline Brown's The Green Scare, How a Movement That Never Killed Anyone Became the FBI's #1 domestic terrorism threat. And that is, environmental activists are considered the #1 domestic terrorist threat, even though the FBI and the CIA, based on their own information, understand that the greatest domestic threat in America are far right wing extremists. Far right extremism is how they determine it, how they classify it, because they don't want to say white supremacist extremism. I get a lot of this information and the citations, the bibliographies in what's it called? Dissertations are really, really great resources for me. So I spend a lot of time reading people's dissertations and online. And checking out those bibliographies, because they have great framings, great information, and they obviously have exceptional citations. Anyway, so the whole, like this, the framing of terrorism in this, and the positioning of it on Luigi Mangione is a threat. It is a declaration against us, against him, and against us, against anything that he stood for. And because he took a political position, he is now being prosecuted in the most heavy-handed way. Think about our political prisoners. A few episodes ago, I mentioned that Joe Biden was behind even Obama when it came to clemencies. He's actually pushed through about 1,500 plus since then, but not for political prisoners. Leonard Peltier is still in prison. Mumia Abu-Jamal is still in prison. When you have a political message, right? When you challenge things like mass incarceration that objectively disproportionately targets Black and brown people and poor people and disabled people, right? That's not terrorism. Knowing that we have built-in injustice that targets people, that's not terrorism. But criticizing that is. Not just criticizing it, doing something about it, whether it's symbolic or not. And that's the thing that the American government understands. And I'll just wrap here. I have to say this to myself. When you read things like Noam Chomsky's The Way the World Works, right? You get a really good sense of America's foreign policy. He does a phenomenal job sort of breaking down how it happens, why it happens, and it really hones in on what America, the work it's done to destabilize South America, which is partly why we have such a quote crisis at the border. We've created massive conditions for destabilization, not just in the Middle East. We've done it in South America, and what they've been clear about in Americans' foreign policy from then till now is that it is the idea of liberation, the very idea of liberation or revolution or change that they attack itself. So that's highly sophisticated intelligence. This is why our ideas are so incredibly important, because we're not combating a president or even Congress, or a set of cabinet or government or a set of leaders. Sure, that's part of it. But we're actually fighting against as a belief system. We need a belief system to defeat it. What the United States has understood very well is that you must kill the idea and the thing that we do in order to succeed. We have never allowed the idea of change, of revolution, or of liberation to die. And that is a massive win. And I know it is so impossible, so difficult, so challenging to frame anything, right, like that's happening right now as a win. But that is, and it is significant, and it means everything. And the American government understands it. And you know what? Don't let them get a leg up on us. If they get it, so do we. So this is something that we need to pay attention to. I still firmly believe that Luigi Mangione stands a really fucking solid chance at appealing to a jury and stating his case. There was so much empathy, so much understanding amongst everyday regular people. It's whether or not the system will continue to have its way with us that will determine what happens next. I say absolutely the fuck not. Before we hit the VMs, sorry, Lord, I've lost it. I want to tell you this little quote from Homer, the Iliad. Any moment might be our last. Everything is more beautiful because we're doomed. You will never be lovelier than you are now. We will never be here again. That's the piece that I made with my anxiety. That's the piece that I made for this fight ahead. We are here. And you will never be lovelier than you are now. And we will never be here again. So be here. Let's be fucking here with everything that we've got. God damn it. All right, let me hit the VMs for that. Yeah, no, we're doing well. Totally girl interrupted, 100% girl interrupted. Anyway, let me hit that.
Hi, Janaea. So I saw the CNN article about a viral artwork. It's titled Comedian, and basically it's just a banana duct taped to the wall. But it sold for $6.24 million. I was wondering what you thought about art like this, and if it says something about capitalism or like what its commentary is about. Yeah.
I am in physical pain because I know exactly about I'm going to okay. I know this. Of course, the title got me and everything else, but it was all up in the New York Times. When I tell you to realize that a fucking banana had a greater net worth than I do, than anyone I know. What did it do? I lost my fucking mind. And I'm saying this in the Gen Z way. I was like, I'll just fucking kill myself then. Fuck it. Which is, I know, a direct contradiction. But remember, this is just a Gen Z emotion. It is infuriating. And I'm sorry, this bullshit about art and in this context, right? We all know that art is beautiful but we've got billionaires who hide their fucking art to avoid taxation on fucking yachts in the middle of on super yachts in the middle of the ocean. I hate it here so fucking much. Do you know that the person who bought that $6.24 million banana duct tape to a fucking canvas ate the goddamn banana? I watched him eat it. If I had my way, if there was any justice, I would have transformed into Donkey Kong right then and there and beat that ass. It's infuriating. It is, yes, it's capitalism. It's all of it. It's the frivolousness. And in this particular moment, so dystopian, so fucking dystopian. And also, I waffle all the time. Is that the word when you go back and forth? Maybe? But a waffle is a grid. Okay, whatever. I go back and there are moments when I'm like, I've seen things where I'm like, it's breathtaking. I totally understand art. And then there are moments like that where I'm like, nope, I don't. I could do that. I could do that, and I could write a really good blurb and make it sound super fucking deep. That's my gift. So that is a great question, and yes, I'm there. It makes me so angry that it keeps my dreams alive. Let's just put it that way. Let's just put it that way. Great question. Thank you for that. Ooh, hell yes to a strike. Hell yes to care. Hell yes to you. Let's all go fucking girl interrupted. Why don't I hit the outro music? Because that's our episode for today. I just want to say thank you so much for listening to JFK Today. It means the world to me. This show really is a labor of love. New episodes drop 4 times a week. We're available everywhere podcasts are. I mentioned our Patreon at the top of the episode. Go ahead and show some love if you feel like it. Don't forget that I want to hear from you. Drop your voice note questions to jfktodaysshow@gmail.com. Shout out to KR and Carolyn. And shout out to you, the listeners that make it all possible. Love you. Peace.